Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 101 Great Goals here for another Talking Points episode. But it's not going to be a regular Talking Points. It's going to be an FPL-inspired Talking Points. And this is a little bit of a day off for me because I'm going to sit back and let the experts do the talking. They're laughing, but they're very, very good at FPL. So we have got Tom from Who Got the Assist. We've got Josh from Always Cheating, and we've got Lynn on as well, and it is a birthday today, so happy birthday to Lynn. So what we're going to be talking through today is a few FPL tips, where to look for next season and how to finish off your season this season as well. We've got a few big players that are potentially joining the Premier League, such as Erling Haaland and Jadon Sancho, so we might talk through them and see how they could be lining up in your FPL next season. So a lot of FPL knowledge floating about here. We'll start with Bruno Fernandes because Bruno has just one attacking return in his last 5 games, with 5 games left to play, and Manchester United having a big eye on the Europa League. Is it time to sell if you do have Bruno Fernandes? Lynn, I'll come to you first. Where are you standing on Bruno?
Well, I've kept Bruno for all this time, but I've actually sold him this week.
There you go.
And it's mainly because of the turn of fixtures, and as well as Pogba is playing, and that's, well, he gets a bit less output, and also he doesn't seem to get as many penalties anymore. So for that price, he's just not worth it for me at the moment.
So just out of interest, who did you replace him with?
Sigurdsson.
Sigurdsson?
Yeah, I'm going
Good
for
shout.
that double. I'm not doing the best this year, so I need to, take some punts.
Tom, where do you sit then on Bruno Fernandes? Because a very, very good player and one who's been a stalwart for Manchester United, but dropped off a little bit recently. And I know there's a lot of FPL players who maybe not as clued up as yourselves who would be inclined to keep him. So what would your advice be there?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the double game week there. That there's a potential one coming up. If you know who Ben Crellin is, he's forecasting a 70% chance of Aston Villa and Leicester, I think it is, for Man United getting that double. I think he's at Ben Crellin on Twitter if you want to see who this guy is. But Bruno himself, I think he's been a mixture of kind of jaded and also a bit unfortunate. Like over the last 6 games, he's actually 4th from bottom in terms of expected goal involvements versus what he's actually done. So he's had chances of goals and assists. It's just not quite happened. As you say, 1 goal, 1 assist in the last 8 for an over £11 million investment isn't great, is it? And he's also blocking other people from buying other players. So, if you sell him, something you've got loads of money floating around, you can kind of buy a few alternatives. But yeah, I'm keeping him, I think, just in terms of that double game week potentially. And I guess with him, he's 11.5 million now. I bought him in at 10.5. So he's very hard for me to sell and then buy back. I've got to find a lot more money that I don't really have anymore. And he's always 1 haul away from essential. So I think I'll keep him 1 or 2 more weeks and then maybe reassess again. But yeah, I completely respect what Lynn's saying there as well. And I can see how people would be moving him on. I mean, Josh, what do you reckon? Are you a Bruno fan or a Bruno seller?
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of Bruno as a player, certainly. Yeah, I mean, he's been a little unlucky. I mean, I think it was the Spurs match. He had a goal that, what should have been a goal, and then Lloris made an incredible save. And it's sort of, you have to look at those really fine margins. It's like you see 1 return in 5 matches, and you're like, oh, like this guy's just totally off. The interesting thing about Pogba, and I didn't really understand at first why Pogba was making him not do as well, and because I was sort of like, I don't think of them as occupying the same role, but somebody pointed out that the problem is that Pogba pushes Bruno left, and sort of just doesn't have that kind of free, I mean, I feel like, I think like one of the best goals he scored this season was a volley, and it was like he scored it like on the right side of the, it was like kind of not even anywhere close to where he should have been in theory on the pitch, but he just likes to roam around all the place. And so, yeah, for me, I think it's a little trickier because I'm having one of my best seasons, and he is. So there's a little bit, and this is like something that like I feel like a lot of us start to feel like down the stretch, a little bit of fear, where it's like he's like the one person who, if I let him go, and he scored like I mean, it's not like we all know he could have a hat trick on a given day, right? I mean, a hat trick of penalties alone, right? And like in the right match. And so he's like the one player who could really hurt me if if he really went off. But I feel like if you're kind of struggling this season, or if you're if you're trying to make up ground or something like that, then I think dropping him does make a lot of sense because he's just not in great form. And it's kind of weird up front with them right now too, right? Where you sort of have Mason Greenwood playing up front sometimes, and Cavani like is really inconsistent too, like not starting all the time. And so sort of, I don't know, Rashford's kind of had important. So it's like the people around him aren't helping him either. I feel like is part of the problem.
Josh, just sticking with you then, because you said, you just sort of put it in there. You're having a good season this season.
Yeah, not to brag.
Not to brag, but as you get into the crunch of this season, do you feel the pressure of whatever decisions you make could potentially impact on a good finish for you? So do you feel that? And where are you going for the last 5 games? Who are your hot tips?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my team is super boring right now. I mean, that's actually part of the problem is I've sort of got in my head that I need to do all these like blocking maneuvers, like cover every player who's really good just in case. But I feel like that now I just sort of have like this like really generic squad. And so, I mean, I think that I'm actually looking, it's interesting that Lynn mentioned Gylfi because I'm looking at him as well. And I have a couple players in my team who I think I could turn into Gylfi Sigurdsson. They're the one team that we know is going to play twice because they had this match with Aston Villa that was COVID delayed like many months ago. So he had a brace just 2 weeks ago. He's not very expensive. And so he's always been kind of streaky too. I mean, going back to like when he was at Swansea, right? He's always been like one of these players who could like just have an incredible run. And he's on pens. So I think he's one person that I'm looking at. I think Leeds are another team that I'm looking at. I feel like their form has dipped a little bit, but I think if Rafinha come back, they have a great run in. And again, what makes them appealing is that they're so cheap. And so you can really bring in almost and if anyone from Stuart Dallas to Rafinha to even Patrick Bamford who's a little out of form right now. I mean, those players are all just so easy to bring in. And I think they had this terrible run where they played, I think it was Man United, Man City, and Liverpool, like 3 game weeks in a row. And so it didn't make them, outside of Stuart Dallas, like I don't think it really flattered them very much. But I think that they're a squad that I'm looking at too.
Lynn, just then going towards the end of the season, people may be watching this who are trying to catch up in the mini leagues or really make a go to the end of the season. I know you mentioned Gylfi Sigurdsson as well, but who else would you be tempted to pick towards the end of the season just for some guaranteed points?
I'm not sure about guaranteed points, but something of a differential could actually be Wood. I guess we were all surprised by his hat-trick the other day, but he's actually had 5 returns in his last 6, and 2 of them double digits. So yeah, I would do Wood.
Yeah, Chris Wood getting on 3 goals and an assist. Like, he had an unbelievable game, and who knew Burnley were going to be the big scorers on the weekend as well? No one would have predicted that. Tom, where are you going then for the end of the season running?
I think similar to Lynn, I'll be taking a few more kind of chances. So it kind of completely makes sense what Josh is saying about blocking. And for me, it's kind of just trying to find the spots to kind of do something a little bit different. So a lot of time it will be kind of captaincy choices outside the norm. Probably not this week, probably because Harry Kane's at home to Sheffield United. That's one that you probably don't want to overthink. But going forward on a double game week and going forward into kind of those kind of last 3 games, those are weeks to look at, okay, what's everyone going to do? I'm going to do something slightly different. In terms of a player, one player that I got in last week, actually, for my own team, and I know Lynn actually captained this week, is Timmy Castagne at Leicester. He's got 20 points for the last 2 weeks. But this is kind of an eye test one, really. He's really started to prove an integral part of the Fox's attack, I think, particularly in the build-up. Like, he got an assist versus West Brom last week, but he'd started to really ping on my radar because his average position on that flank, even in the fallow period, he hadn't done anything, I don't think, in the few weeks before that. He was so advanced on that right flank, and now he's underlapping Iheanacho for the goal. He's so involved in their build-up play, and he's so creative that I just think he could be a really, really nice sort of under-the-radar sort of option for people. He's under 10% owned at the moment. They've got Southampton and Newcastle up next, and they've got a tougher end of the season. There could be a double game week in there. And yeah, he's just one of those kind of flying fullbacks we like in fantasy football. Think about, the likes of Alonso, likes of Robertson. Leicester are doing fairly well. They're motivated for that Champions League spot. So he could be one that I'd suggest people have a look at.
Is there any teams that you would avoid at this moment in time?
Wolves.
I know Wolves is one who are playing awful, but when you think of big teams like Manchester City, who maybe have got an eye on the Champions League, I just thought then, is there any? Do you tend to avoid those teams towards the end of the season?
It depends. So it depends on whether everything's all kind of wrapped up. I think for the next couple of games with City, maybe you may be thinking, oh, they've got to win those to win it. The problem is that you just can't predict who's going to be playing because you've got all those other sort of commitments, right? So is it worth ploughing, 11 million or so into Kevin De Bruyne versus spending that money elsewhere on players who you know are going to be playing in the Premier League? It probably is worth going for the certainty there, although there's obviously opportunity in going for the rotation. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I mean, I just played my second wild card, and I'd had at least 2 Man City players for probably like 20 weeks, and I don't have any longer, and it was just for that same reason. I mean, with 5 weeks to go, it's like one thing. It's one thing to get someone like Gundogan or Kevin De Bruyne early on, and you're kind of like, well, if they miss a few through rotation, that's okay. But with 5 or 6 weeks left, you really don't want a player to miss like 2 out of 5 or whatever, which I think is very possible with some of the, I mean, Pep is, really trying to win the Champions League this year. And so, I mean, I guess we'll know more. I can't remember if they play, I think they play tomorrow in the semifinal. And then I think they play again next week. Right. So I just, and they pretty much have the league wrapped up. So if it makes it a little nerve wracking, I think. And, I think Diaz is the one player who I'd probably still trust just because it seems like he's the one defender who sort of makes that Man City, the whole defense sort of click together. So I think he's probably the most likely to play almost every match down the stretch.
Lynn, are there any teams that you would be avoiding at this moment in time?
No, I think it's probably the same. It's perhaps City then. I don't own any City players. And if I was to get one, I would probably look at Foden or Mahrez just as a differential. But that would also mean I would have to have a really good bench in case they don't play. One thing about Pep is that if he doesn't start a player, it's not very likely that the player actually comes on. So if he starts, it's a good one. If he doesn't, well, hopefully your bench will cover him.
That's it. Pep Guardiola, the FPL killer, as he's known on Twitter. I mean, I'm a Man City fan, and he wanted 5 substitutions, didn't get them, so now he just doesn't substitute at all now. So Sergio Aguero, we'll stick with City. Sergio Aguero, then, he's set to leave Man City at the end of this season. For a number of years, I know Lynn said you can't guarantee points, but he was pretty much one of the ones where you knew he was going to get you some points during the season. Who do you see picking up the mantle now going into next season for some more stonewall picks that you think are guaranteed to get you quite a few points next season? I'll start with you, Lynn. Who would you be going for next season?
I would go for two. This season there have been kind of medium picks, Jota and Phil Foden. Because I think Phil has proven that he should be nailed on. He should play a lot for City. And hopefully he will also be a decent price next year and not 10 million or more. And the same with Jota. It also depends a bit on what Liverpool does this summer. If they actually manage to sign a forward, then maybe less of a good pick. But still, he has proven he should be in the starting 11 and might even play out of position.
Mm-hmm. Josh, where do you go then on guaranteed points next season? Because we could see maybe Harry Kane making a move, or are you still going to be top of the top?
We'll see if Levy ever lets him go, But yeah, I think I actually think one player that came to mind. I'm not even sure why he was the first thing that popped in my head, but I think Marcus Rashford is a player who has had kind of a poor season by his standards, but he's super young. He's pretty much like the first name in the team sheet for Ole or any Man United manager. I think that he's just for the first name in the squad, and I think that he's due for a really big bounce back season last year, because I think if the ball had rolled a little differently a few times this year, he would be looked at as one of the top players in fantasy. And I think he's just been a little lucky, maybe a little out of form, and I sort of peg him to be a really good player. Maybe it's just a little under the radar because his numbers won't look as good as someone like Bruno next year.
So, Tom, where are you going then? Where are you going then next season as your go-to players? I know it's hard to say.
I mean, the go-tos are always going to be the same, I think. Actually, like if you review the key metric, total points scored, the top four are as follows: Bruno, Kane, Salah, Son. They're all going to break the 200-point mark this season. Okay, as you said, we need to see what happens with Kane and Spurs, but Bruno and Salah, I'm sure, will continue to return because they're just fantasy football monsters. It's not worth overthinking that. I like the Rash call, I like that, and I like the Foden and Jota call as well, the up-and-coming ones. The other one I'd mention is Sadio Mane, actually. So he has had two before this season, had two back-to-back 200-plus point seasons where he scored, 18 or 22 goals, I think they were in the last two. This season, he's really trailed off. He's been on an epic cold streak. Only 8 goals and 9 assists, which for him is terrible. 137 points he's got. So provided he stays at Liverpool, I think he can come back into the reckoning next year. This year, for whatever reason, it's just not really come together for him. But he's one of those players who, kind of in previous years, has really kind of shown himself to be perhaps not quite on the Mo Salah GOAT level, the one just slightly below in terms of FPL managers being able to trust him to return you points. But yeah, no, lots of good picks there. But I think Bruno and Salah are still going to be the ones that we're going to be trying to fit into our team come early next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And there could be some new players as well joining us next season in the Premier League. So we're going to do a quick fire price predictor. I know it's impossible, isn't it, to decide how much these players are going to be, but given the indication, if they make the move, where do we see Harry Kane being priced at if he was to move to Man City? I know this is a fairly simple one because of his price last season, but where do we see him? Josh, I'll start with you. Where do you see Harry Kane being priced if he moves to City?
Oh, I mean, I let's say 12 million. I think 12 million. That feels like the Robin van Persie when he moved to Man United price tag, Mm-hmm. So I think that feels right to me.
Tom?
Yeah, I think so. In the League Cup final, it felt like a team who relied on Harry Kane, playing a team that needed Harry Kane, put them together, it could be dynamite. So yeah, I think you're looking at top dollar, the most expensive player in the game, probably him and Salah, probably being those two. Should have mentioned him actually, it's been in terms of the guaranteed points a bit more. But anyway, yeah, 30.5, not bad for a player written off as it has been last season, eh?
Mm-hmm. Lynn, are you inclined to agree with that price?
Yeah, I also think 12 millions.
Okay. So, Lynn, stick with you then. Jadon Sancho, if he was to turn to Manchester United or Liverpool, as it's being talked about today, how much could Jadon Sancho cost? Because a young player, plenty of potential, but also he's putting world-class numbers out at the moment.
I was thinking Sancho because he's been a bit injured and he's not played the whole season. I think he will probably be around 9 million.
9 million. Tom, so Sancho goes to Manchester United. Where are you pricing him?
To be honest with Sancho, I'm still getting over his FIFA pace attribute. I can't believe they gave him such a low one. Anyway, he's still going to be one you're going to be interested in despite this season. In fact, no, this season he's done all right. He's averaging just under 1 goal involvement per game for Dortmund in the Bundesliga, which isn't bad at all. That's still FPL monster territory. I reckon they'd give him something prohibitive, actually. I reckon they'd give him 10.5 to 11, just in case he does explode. Because a few years ago, Mo Salah joined the Premier League at 9.0 and was in everybody's team and was just ridiculous value. And they probably won't want to do that again. So I think they will kind of give him something kind of 10.5, 11-ish would feel about right. Because he's quite hyped.
And Josh, where are you going then with Sancho?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same category there. I mean, the game never throws you a bone. I feel like they never go lower than you want them to. It's always like 0.5 higher just to make you a little bit nervous. So I think Tom's right. I think something like 10.5 feels right. I hadn't heard the Liverpool talk, by the way. That would be amazing for fantasy alone, right? And let alone for Liverpool. So yeah, I think 10.5 seems about right.
Yeah, it was in BBC today. Apparently, there's a few more teams interested than there was last season, Liverpool being one of the teams, but Manchester United certainly interested as well. Rafael Varane is an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's had the calibre, he's had the pedigree, he's certainly won everything that there is to win in football, and he's been heavily linked with Chelsea. Because I think Real Madrid are a bit open to selling him this summer. So where would Varane cost, do you think, Tom, first, if he was to go to Chelsea? Because we know that Tuchel as well, he's such a good defensive coach, even though he says he doesn't coach defensively, but they've been phenomenal this season at the back. So where would you price Varane?
I think they just stick him in at 6. That tends to be what they do for these sort of premium defenders. Like, he wouldn't be value for money, I'm afraid, unless he becomes like a 38 out of 38 game man like Van Dijk. Tuchel just loves to rotate, and that would be a worry of mine. He's got 9 goals and 4 assists over 10 seasons at Real Madrid, so he's not going to be getting the goals and assists for you over the course of the season. Maybe look at Chilwell or Reece James or something like that. You want kind of the extra on top of what you're paying. So I reckon he'll be given a 6, and he'd be one that you could probably safely ignore for a lot of the season. Actually, he's not quite an FPL exciting player for me, but I could be proven wrong. Could turn to a goal machine.
Lynn, where are you at with Varane?
Yeah, I also would guess about 6. Because they've got a solid defense and he's proven to be pretty good at what he does. Could potentially get some bonus points as well, so could be a good deal.
All right, and I'll stick with my previous logic that if I want it to be 6, they're going to price him at 6.5, just to make me just to make me annoyed. So I'll go with 6.5 as his starting price.
Okay, and I think the next one, I haven't seen a player talked about this much in years. Erling Haaland to any of the top clubs. If he was to come to the Premier League, what do you think FPL would whack a price on him? Because he comes with so much hype as well as talent. And I'll go with Lynn because a fellow Norwegian who is unbelievable at playing football. So where would you price him at, Lynn?
Well, if he's under 13, I'm going to get him. But I'm guessing he will be in the class of Harry Kane this season. So 11.5, thereabouts. And I would love to see him at Liverpool. But I suspect City or United will maybe catch him.
Yeah, I want him at City. Hopefully he doesn't go to Liverpool. Josh, where are you at with Erling Haaland? Unbelievable footballer.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I think 12 feels right. I mean, it'll be something. I think they would go pretty high there. I mean, just because his numbers are incredible. In the Champions League and in the Bundesliga as well. So I think and I think there's kind of a track record of Bundesliga players getting pretty high price tags. I remember when Son joined a few years ago, kind of most of us hadn't really heard much about him, and he had this what felt like an extremely high price. I think it was like 9.5 or something like that, and it ended up being almost low, based on how well he did. So I think that a Bundesliga player there's a pretty good track record there. I think that around 12 feels about right.
And Tom, then Erling Haaland, where would you price him?
I mean, I was thinking of Aubameyang there, actually, Josh. Like, he came in at 10.5, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that looks like, really underpriced. I reckon they give him around kind of 11.5. They wouldn't go top. They wouldn't do kind of the Kane Salah, I don't think. Maybe Bruno would be up in the upper echelon. I think he becomes slightly below just to kind of give you the temp to kind of go away from Kane and Salah and maybe take a punt on this guy. Well, it's not really a punt, is it? Like 25 goals, 5 assists in the Bundesliga in just 26 appearances this year. Can't argue with that. So yeah, very exciting if it does happen, and lots of choices to be made ahead of next year for sure.
Yeah, I think in all competitions, what is he on about? Averaging 1.1 a game, 1.1 goals a game? That's ridiculous numbers. It's absolutely stupid. Do you think FPL will be inclined to go maybe a little bit more, Tom, given the hype that he will bring and maybe the more inexperienced players like myself who would be buying him straight away regardless of what he costs?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, basically. As Josh always says, like I'm the same. Like I always think it's going to be 0.5 less than it actually ends up being. So you may well find that I'm saying 12, and they end up shoving him in at the highest bracket. I think that just a tiny bit below because he's unproven in the Premier League would be probably about right, but I wouldn't be surprised if they hype him to the max.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that just about rounds everything up. Just before you all go, Josh, where are you sitting at the moment, FPL-wise, globally?
Yeah, I'm 5,400 overall right now. So,
Wow.
having a really everything's a lot of luck, but it's having a very good season so far. And so I'm hoping the goal right now is to maybe see if I can get in like the top 2,500. I think with 5 weeks to go, I think that's maybe doable. Sort of depends. I need Diego Jota to start scoring again. I think that would really help me. So but that's where I am right now.
That is some serious dedication. Tom, where are you at on FPL so far this year?
At 200k at the moment, had a kind of an up and down sort of season. Been on the bad side of a lot of calls, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm hoping to kind of get in the top 100k, I think, towards the end.
And Lynn, just finishes off. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm not having a great season. I'm at 295k. And yeah, just hope to keep climbing a bit before it all ends for this season.
100%. I mean, 100% we go again next season. I think I'm about 3.5 mil, is what we were talking about before. So just to make you all feel a little bit better. So thank you to you all for joining us. All of their links to various podcasts and their Twitter handles will be in the description below. And I'm sure that if you did follow them all, you get some unbelievable FPL tips. Don't follow me. You don't want my tips. These guys are where you want to go for the tips. But thank you to everyone who's watched. And I hope this has been insightful to you all. If you are new around here, please subscribe to 101 Great Goals. And like I said, go and check them out as well. And check us out on social media as well. So thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next week for another Talking Point. And until then, have a great week.